Al Angelo from A Plus Racing. We're back here at Placer High School, Auburn, California, making another video to get your Miata up there in the front where they hand out the trophies. So, and guess who's back? Say hi.
Hi, everybody. It's Cameraman Mike.
Cameraman Mike is back. You know, yeah, he broke free from his busy schedule and came here to videotape for me. I couldn't get none of the kids to help me. Damn kids! So we got camera Mike back. Nice to see Mike again. All right. So the last video that I did a video about alignment, and I got it was a great video. You guys exploded the channel with that video. You guys really liked it. So I'm really glad that you guys got to put it to some use. And also that I got a lot of comments. I'm like, okay, so like, where should I set my Miata? You know, what do you use? Where do you set your alignment angles at? And in the past, that has always been a really big secret. All right. So normally people don't share that information at the racetrack. They don't want you to get an edge on them. On this channel, I have never held back anything that I do. And believe me, we just took first and second at Laguna Seca this last weekend with cars that we set up right here at the high school with high school kids. So I don't pull anything back. So I'm going to tell you where I set my cars, and a lot of people won't tell you, and I'll even tell you why. But before I do that, I have to tell you something. I have to give a shout out to Esther Nix, who allows her husband to sit in the living room all night long watching A Plus Racing videos. Esther, thank you so much. I really appreciate you letting him watch those videos. So they're great subscribers, and she gets a kick out of the videos too. They sent me a picture of them in the living room with the dog, and everybody's watching A Plus Racing videos. So Esther, thank you so much, and thank you for subscribing. Okay, back to the alignment. All right, so if I look at the stock alignment specs for a Miata, they're crazy to me. They're just absolutely crazy. And you have to understand that, and especially if you watch the video before this on wheel alignment that I tell you about camber, caster, toe. So you're going to need to know those in order to understand this video. But so get back over there and watch that one. So the alignment for a stock Miata is completely different than the way that we set up spec Miatas or racing cars. So if I'm driving a Miata on the street and the track, which I know a lot of you are, then I'm going to set the alignment a little bit more conservative. All right. Now, I come up with my own specifications over many, many years of experimenting. So what you're getting, this information comes from over 15 years of experimenting on the track, testing, adjusting, and constantly going out there during warm weather, wet weather, you know, cold weather, all different types of track conditions. So this research and development that I have done over the course of many, many years, I'm just going to give it to you because you subscribe to the channel, right? I mean, you did subscribe, so you subscribe to the channel. So I'm just going to give it to you. So now when I'm looking at a car and I'm going to determine where am I going to set the alignment, the first things that I have to do, especially on our spec Miatas, because they have coilover. So if you've got coilover on your car, the first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to set the ride height. Okay, so the ride height has to be set. And I've experimented with different ride heights. Me personally, what I like to do is I like to ride my ride height at 4.5 inches from the pinch weld to the ground. Okay, and so I'm going to draw a picture so you understand what I'm talking about. Okay, so if I go over here to the board, and here's the bottom of my car. Okay, and then here's the ground. All right, so I measure from here to here and from here to here, okay? And now this is me, all right? Me driving, okay? With me driving, I like 4.5 inches. Now, let's go back. So I like 4.5 inches. The reason why is that I am the type of driver that likes to drive on the bump stop, okay? So I'm a bump stop driver. What that means is that when I come around a turn, let's say turn 2 at Thunder Hill, I come around a turn at Thunder Hill and the car starts to lean over. After a while, the little bump cushion inside of the shock absorber that keeps the whole suspension from bearing out, it's going to bury out against the shock. So that means I don't have any more shock absorber, okay? The springs aren't making effect. I'm pretty much solid from the control arm through the shock into the body into me. And I feel it in my asthmometer, okay? So you all have an asthmometer, and you know, we tune that in when we're racing. I drive off my asthmometer. You know, that's how it tells me what the car is doing and what it wants and what I'm going to change. So it just comes from many hours of being on the track. I like that feeling. I like the feeling of being planted to the ground and I can feel what the tires are doing. I can predict what the car is going to do by the feeling I'm getting in the seat of the car and the steering wheel. I can feel it, all right? So that's why I run 4.5 inches. On my rental cars, I don't normally run it that low. Okay, so I'll run 5 to 5.25. All right, from the pinch weld to the ground, and you need to experiment with this yourself. Okay, so the first thing I do on the car, now if I'm going to set up a Spec Miata, that's going to be a rental, and there's going to be novices driving it, then I'm going to probably set it up at between 5 and 5.25. Now, one or the other. It doesn't mean in between 5.25. It means one or the other. Okay, so don't go, oh yeah, this one's at 5 1/8, and this one's at 5.25, and don't do that. They have to be exactly the same, and you have to have the driver in the driver's seat, okay? Through all of this process, the driver's weight must be in the driver's seat, okay? And I like to set the car up with 1 gallon of gas, all right? Because when I come off the racetrack, I want to be as light and as fast as I can. And so I want 1 gallon of gas to get me back to my pit so we could get the car ready to go for the next race, all right? So I might drain all the gas out of the car, add 1 gallon of gas. Now I'm going to set the ride height. So once you've determined what ride height you're going to set, all right, so you make that happen. And it's got to be perfect, okay? You're going to end up moving those collars up and down. And we'll go to a car out here in a little bit, and I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about. All right, how we make the adjustment, all right? Mike, make sure to remind me to tell them how to make the adjustment. Okay, good. All right, because I'll forget. All right, okay. So, Esther, are you following along? Don't fall asleep, Esther. Stay awake. Here we go. We're going on farther. All right. Okay, so I got my ride height done. All right. The next step is to set the corner weighting. Now, here's what I've found over many years of doing this. I kind of find that if I get my ride height exactly all the way around, a lot of times the corner weight is almost exactly where I want it to be. So what is corner weighting? Well, it's balancing the tires, the amount of weight on the tire from the left front to the right rear and the right front to the left rear. So we call that corner weighting. And so I would like it to be 50%. 50% is perfect. But I will also accept 49.9 through 50.1 on the percentage of corner weighting. Okay, now how do I do that at home? You can't. All right, you kind of have to have some scales. So we have a set of scales, and I weigh the car. It tells me not only how much does the whole car weigh, it tells me the corner weighting and what the percentage is. So I tune for that. So if you don't have one, you don't have one. You're just going to have to move to the next step. Okay, so which is the actual alignment itself. Once again, the corner weighting is done with the driver in the car. So if you know a race shop somewhere close to you, then you could go there and they could help set up the corner weighting for you, okay? Now, so I go from my ride height, which like I said, if you get it exact, your corner weighting is going to be very, very close. Sometimes we don't even have to touch it because it lands in between that specification that I just showed you. So you get your corner weighting right. Now we're going to move on to the alignment. Okay, so on the alignment, there's going to be a couple things I need to know first before I know where to set the alignment. Now, I know we could set it to the stock alignment. It's gonna handle okay. The tires will last a long time, you know, but it's not going to be fast. All right, those specifications are made for, mom and dad driving this thing on a country road or going down to get groceries. Okay, and most of us watching this video, that's not us, especially not me. So I want to push the car. All right, I want the car to handle well, and you pick the car that can handle absolutely flawlessly. At Thunderhill, Spec Miatas, they're feared by Corvettes and Porsches and Ferrari because our little Miatas will kick their ass at Thunderhill. And so people ask, well, what's it like racing against Corvettes? I go, you ever see that hawk that flies around and those little birds that keep pecking at it? Those are us, okay? We're the little birds that keep picking at that Ferrari until he finally points us by. How embarrassing is that? And that's not a Miata because they're set up to be handled so well. All right, so we have full adjustment alignment in the rear. We have full adjustment alignment in the front. Okay, and we'll cover more of that in a minute when we go out to look at the car. So what I need to know is I need to know what am I doing with the car. So let's say that I'm a Spec Miata racer, okay, and I know a lot of you are. So we're going to set this thing up Spec Miata. So one of the first things I need to know is what tires are we going to be running? Believe it or not, the tires make all the difference in the world on where I'm going to set the alignment up. So the way I put these cars up on the front row where they're getting, they're on the podium is because I know what tires are going on that car. And I set the alignment up for that driver's driving style, how aggressive they are, and also to what kind of tire we're going to run. So here in my region, in the San Francisco region, we use one of two different tires. We could use Hoosiers or we could use the Toyo Double R. Hey, they came out with a Toyo Single R. They're pretty badass. I got a set of them a few weeks ago. They're pretty nice. And they're more readily available. If you find that you're not able to get the RRs, the Single R is available, but I'm not sure if it's legal in Spec Miata. But in our area, we can run the Double R or we can run the Hoosiers. So, and I set the car up differently for each one. Those of you that have ran Hoosiers, including myself, I love Hoosiers. I really like them. They're fast. I'm a second faster in Hoosiers than I am on RRs. The problem I have with Hoosiers is that they heat cycle out before they actually wear out, which means they get real greasy and slimy, and they're hard to control after they've had several heat sessions on them, where the Double R will run the same as this brand new all the way till it cords out. So that's one thing nice about the Double R is it's the same traction all the way throughout the whole wear of the tire. And the Hoosier doesn't do that. Hoosier has a stiffer sidewall than the Double R. So my alignment is different, all right? So I'm going to tell you how I set up the Double R, but I will also tell you how I set up a Hoosier tire, okay? If this is autocross, then you're running a tire that's probably a street / track tire. It may have a 200 rating, somewhere around in there, and not like a 40. So the problem with that tire is that you can never get it up to proper temperature because it has so much grooves and, for the traction for water and so forth, that it really cools the tire down. So that tire is a little harder to tune in just for the fact that it doesn't ever get up to temperature like the RR or the Hoosier, okay? So anyhow, so if you're going to set this up for autocross or just an aggressive driving, I got a little windy section that goes to my house. I love that little windy section when I'm driving a Miata. So, I'll set up my tires accordingly. So let's just keep all of that in mind, okay? And also, too, the tire pressure is going to make a big difference on how the car handles. Well, real quick, before we talk about the alignment, let's talk about tire pressure. So obviously on the side of the tire, it is written how much tire pressure the tire is rated for. And you might say something, I think on the Double R, and don't quote me on this, I think it's 43 pounds cold, tire pressure, which we would never run it that high on the racetrack. It would handle terrible. All right. So once again, this is one of those secrets that normally we don't share. Okay. We don't share this information because we don't want you beating us. All right. So, but I'm going to tell you. So on the Double R, I usually start them off at around 25. okay? So I know that sounds low to you, but around 25. Because here's what we found out through the R&D over the years is that if I run 25 and I come off at 30 to 31, it's maximum grip with that tire. If I come off at 32, I'm already losing it. So I've kind of found out, me personally, me driving and my drivers, that 31 seems to be the max. 30 to 31, that's my window, okay? So I go out at 25 and then I come back in at 31. Now, if I set it at 25 and somebody comes in at 32, it could, if it's a normal day temperature, it's not super hot, they're over driving the car, okay? They're pushing the car really hard and the tires are gonna heat up really fast. And I might talk to the driver about, hey, try not to go so hard, right out the gate, and try to spread it out so your tires last longer. So, and I back the tire pressure down. Now, once I set the tire pressure in the morning to 25 pounds and they come off at 31, I usually don't have to do much, okay? Now, I know people are like, well, I checked it and I'm at 28 now. Yeah, but the car's been sitting for 25 minutes. It's going to cool down. I wouldn't mess with it, okay? So once you got it to where you come off the track at 31, unless there's a thunderstorm or something major changes in the weather, I just run it. I mean, I keep checking them when I come off the track. And so long as I'm coming off the track at 31, no more than 31, I don't start moving tire pressure. The part that screws me up is when we screw up a tire and I got to bring in another tire, from the rack that's cold, and I got to try to get it to the same temperature as that other tire. That's when it gets a little bit more confusing. So, double R's, 25, okay? The Hoosier, I find that the Hoosiers still like to come off at no more than 31, usually more like in the 30 range. I find I get the most grip out of a Hoosier at 30 pounds of pressure coming off the track. So I usually start those a little lower, okay? So I might start 23 to 24 pounds and then go out and I come off at 31. Now, if I come off the track on either one and I'm at 29, then I'm going to put air in the tire till it's at 30 or 31, okay? So I want to be at that mark. So sometimes it's a good idea, and you'll see them at the racetrack, somebody's in the hot pit with a tank and a tire pressure gauge waiting for you to come right in off the track, check the tire pressure, adjust it, and then you come off. That's the best way of doing it, okay? Because by the time you go through the paddock and you zigzag and you wave to a couple of friends and you finally get to your parking spot, the tires are cooled down, okay? And now you guys get over there and you're measuring the tire pressure. It's no longer accurate. So it's best to do that as quickly as you possibly can. So that's one of the ways that we do it. Another secret of getting your car to the front of the pack. All right, so 23, 24 pounds maybe on the Hoosiers, 25 pounds on the double R, okay? All right, let's go ahead and get to the alignment. This is going to be for a double R. Okay, so we're going to get rid of this. Oh, by the way, this is the notes that the students from last term are giving next year term students on hints on how to pass my class. So, all right, good.
In case you need it.
Okay. And Esther, you're still with us, right? All right, make sure Daniel's still awake, okay? He hasn't fallen asleep yet. All right, so we have the driver's side. Then we have the passenger side. I don't know if this pen works like that. And we're going to start off with our camber. And then we're going to have caster. And then we're going to have toe. All right. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, I do the rears. All right. So let's just say, let's go ahead, let's change this to where we're talking about just the rear. So we're going to get rid of the caster. So we're going to say this is the rear. All right. And then we'll do the front. Okay. So we might as well bring this up here. So, okay. So I'm running double R's. Okay. I want to see a minimum of -2 degrees. Okay. On both sides. Okay. Actually, that would be if there's something bent and I can't get any more out of it. If that's all I can get, then that's all I can get. And usually it's the hub or something like this. So ideally, and I'll put this right here, I would like to see 3.5 negative. Okay. And I'm going to put a circle around that. So ideally, I would like to see that. Okay. Same thing here. ideally negative 3.5. Okay, so that means those rear tires are sitting like this. Okay, that's where I would ideally like to set it. If I got to get 2, then that's all I can get. That's all I can get. Now, the lower you get the car, the more you can get out of it. So if you're setting it at 4 or 5.25 and you can't get that much, if you dropped it to 5, you might find that you can get a little bit more out of that. Okay, and then I'll show you some tricks on how to even squeeze a little bit more out of it. Okay, so this is what I want, and this is for an RR tire, Toyo. Okay, so on the toe, on the rear, I would want to see on each side, I'm going to run it toed in a little bit. So I would say 0.06, 0.06. Since there's no minus, that means it's toed in, not toed out. Okay, and that would be a total of 0.12, which equals to 1/8 of an inch toed in. Okay, that's what I run. I would run this for somebody who is just starting out all the way to somebody who's almost in the top 5, okay? And if they were an accomplished driver and I run myself, then I would run this at 0. I would run as close to 0 if I could, okay? Or if anything, just a little bit towed in, you know, maybe a total of 0.02, okay? Just a hair. Because I want the least amount of rolling resistance that I can get out of the car. And I've got friends that get a fish scale that they make, and they pull the car and they keep moving the toe around until they can get the car to have the least amount of pulling resistance. They do that. Okay, so, but for most of us, and including the cars that got first and second at Laguna last weekend at the SCCA race, I set them like that. All right, and they still won. Okay, so all right, so that's where I would set the rear. Okay, now let's look at the front. See if I can fit it all down on here. Okay, front. So we're going to have camber, caster, and our toe. Okay, and we're dealing with an RR tire. So I don't like to get too far away from this. Okay, so whatever I got on the front, I try to duplicate that on the rear. All right, so on my camber, same thing. I probably want 3.0 to even all the way up to 4.0 negative. 3.0 through 4.0 negative and negative. Okay, so I want that to kind of mimic this up front or on the rear. Okay, so and I'm running that on an RR. RR has a softer sidewall, so there's a little bit more flex. That's the reason why I run that much camber. Now, on the caster, back on this, you might find that you're going to have trouble getting that much camber, especially out of an NB. All right. So what I do is I use the extended lower ball joints. So on the NB, I use extended lower ball joints to get me more negative camber so that I could reach these numbers, especially if I'm not dropping the car real low. Okay, me running 4.5, I can usually get to 3.5. But if I'm going to run a little higher than that, I won't. So I use the extended lower ball joints. Okay, so I did say that before. Good. I don't want to screw you guys up. Extended lower ball joint. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. So that's where I'm going to set my camber on the front. The caster, of course, the caster is a handling angle, and I don't. You know, we delete the power steering, so I'm not running power steering. So I don't want to run 6 degrees, you know, caster when I don't have any power steering. So I'm going to keep that somewhere between 3 degrees, 3.0, and 4 degrees positive. Okay, so, and if you remember on the last video, get back there and watch it, that caster is if I draw a line between the top ball joint and the lower ball joint, that line tilted back towards the driver, that's positive caster. Okay, so the more I tilt it, the more positive caster I have. It's a handling angle. So I set it between 3 and 4 on both sides. Okay, so 3.0 and 4.0. All right. And so, and this is This is the driver's side, and this is the passenger side. Okay, the toe. Here's where it differs from up here. On the toe, I'm going to want 0.06, 0.06 negative. That means towed out, okay? So I want the front to be towed out, and I want the rear to be towed in about the same amount. Me, I run 0, okay, as close to 0 as I can get because I want the least amount of rolling resistance. It makes the car not handle as well when you go into a turn. It's kind of squirrely, but you just get used to driving like that. And once you're used to it, then it rolls a little faster and it gives me a little bit of an edge. All right, so my total tow is going to be towed out 0.12, which is about 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so that's where I set everything up for double R. Okay, now it is slightly different for the Hoosiers. So let's see, what do I do when I'm setting it up for the Hoosiers? So when I'm setting it up for Hoosiers, a stiffer sidewall, now I'm changing primarily my camber. So I run about negative 2.5 through negative 3.0, negative 2.5 through negative 3.0. And of course, I'm going to do the same thing here. So 2.5 through 3.0 and 2.5, making them right? 2.5 through 3.0. Is that right, Mike?
Like you did for RRs.
Oh,
Hoosier, so they know
but I'm not sure how to spell it.
it's close enough. It's 2 O's, but it's fine. It's fine. You're good.
The Hoosiers. Whose tires are those? That's what we hear all the time. Whose are those? All right. So that's basically what I do different. This Hoosier has a much stiffer sidewall. So being it's got a stiffer sidewall, I don't use that much camber. Now, all of these numbers I'm giving you, it's mine. It's my opinion. I know there's people in there jumping up and down right now in their living room. Oh, man, I'll never set my car up like that. This is what I find works best for me at the tracks I have out here on the West Coast, you know, and the drivers that I have and the way that I drive and the way they drive. I'm just giving you what I set it to. You set it wherever you like, okay? This works best for me. Over 20 years now of racing these cars and dealing with them. I find that this is how I set it up, okay? All right. So, all right, let's take a small break and then we'll go out there and we're going to look at a car. All right, be right back. Okay, we're back out in the shop. Look how quiet it is. There's no kids. June. So we got all the time in the world and no bells going off. But hey, Mike told me we're at 29 minutes already on this video. I didn't expect it to be that long. And I know that Daniel wants to go to bed. So, all right, so we got the back end of this Spec Miata here. It has the official, you know, Spec Miata approved sway bar right here that you get when you buy the kit. It does have the Penske's. I'm not going to even begin to go into how I feel about those things. And so, but how do we adjust it? Well, it's going to tell you how to adjust a coilover. So how to adjust a coilover is basically you can see I can turn this collar. So if I turn it down, I'm going to lower the ride height. If I turn it up, I will raise the ride height. So that's how we adjust the coilover. So if I'm measuring and this one's too low, then I need to turn this up a little bit. But in the advanced class, you have to know that if you turn this one up a little bit, you're also going to bring that side down a little bit. So sometimes you got to compensate a little bit to get what you want. All right. So that's how I adjust the ride height. Okay. For camber and toe on the rear, this here is an adjustment. This is an adjustment. This is an adjustment. And right here, this is another adjustment. So these are used to set the camber and the toe on the rear. So by turning these, I can manipulate this control arm to either go out. If I move them in equal amounts, I can go out or I can come in. Okay, so I'm not going to affect the toe. I'm only going to affect camber. Remember, camber is the tilt inward or outward at the tire. So if I want to toe it in a little bit, and I also want to give me a little bit more negative camber, I can make this one go out, and that'll make the tire not only give me more negative camber, but it'll also bring the tire pointed in a little bit to go more towed in. So and it's the same thing on this side. So sometimes if I look at it, the specification, or I look what it's on the screen, and it's like, well, I want more negative camber here and I want to go towed out, then what I would do is I would move this one cam to where I could push the lower control arm out, which is going to tilt the tire, give me more negative camber, and give me more toe out. All right. So you can manipulate these for your camber and toe. All right. And it just takes a little bit of practice on looking at the screen and going, oh, I can do this in one move. You know, you could do two moves, but you know, if I wanted to keep the camber the same, I could move one out and one in. You know, I could do it like that. So there's different ways of doing it. So, but those are the camber and toe, and these arms are even. So whatever you move one, it's going to affect the other one. All right, let's go to the front. Front's a little more complicated. I didn't lose you, did you? Okay, so come on over here. Okay, the adjustments in the front. We have an adjustment here for toe. We have an adjustment here for toe. We have an adjustment here for camber. We have an adjustment here for camber. We have an adjustment here for caster. And we have an adjustment here for caster. Okay, the toe. Let's start off with the toe. So basically, this is the inner tie rod end that goes to the rack. So I would loosen up this jam nut right here, and you can just see that there's like, I think it's a 12 millimeter. So there's like a hex on here. And what you can do is put a wrench on there and you could turn this. So if I turn this arm this way, then it's going to thread into the tie rod end and it's going to give me towed in. If I thread it this way, it's going to unthread from the tie rod end and it's going to give me towed out. Same thing on this side. I crack this loose, okay? I thread it in, it's going to tow it in. I thread it out, it's going to tow it out. So that's how I adjust my toe. Now, if you look at this control arm, and Mike, if you can get kind of like right here and look at it through here, you can see that this adjustment is in line with the ball joint, okay? Whereas this one is not in line with the ball joint. This is camber adjustment, okay, on both sides. So when I move this, it's going to move this tire out or in, and it's going to change my camber, okay? So this is a camber adjustment. This will not adjust caster. Now, back here, if I look at this one is just going to move this arm this way and that way. So what it does is it moves this lower ball joint that way or this way, okay, when I move this cam. So this is a caster adjustment, all right? So when I need to adjust caster, I adjust caster. Now, when I'm setting up an alignment, I always start in the back and I set the camber first and then I touch up the toe. I try to do them both in one move, okay? If I can do them both in one move, I do that, all right? So camber and then toe. I always adjust the rear first, okay? Then I come to the front and I adjust my caster first, then I adjust my camber, then I adjust my toe last, all right? I have to do it in that order. If I change the order around, it screws up the rest of the alignment, okay? So by doing it like I told you, camber, toe, caster, camber, toe, you won't screw up your alignment, okay? So I hope that this video helps you. Sorry it took so long. And I appreciate Daniel and Esther, Nick's watching my videos. Thank you so much. He posted something on TikTok about them watching the videos. That was pretty funny. I got a kick out of that. Hey, thank you so much. I hope this helps you out. And please subscribe, and I'll see you at the racetrack. Bye now.